I am live. Finally, I am live. Let me say Sawubona. Let me just pause for just a minute and say Sawubona. And I'm pausing to say Sawubona because I realize in this very moment that Sawubona has become so much more to me than just a way to start this conversation, the way to start several conversations that I have had and will continue to have. I've got to serve as a keynote speaker on Friday of this week, and I was just thinking I tried to start the conversation without the Sawubona and realized I cannot. And in this moment, the Sawubona not only draws me to the oneness of this space, but it draws me to the oneness of our breath. And me realizing that I need to pause and breathe, and that I find myself searching for the energy that comes from knowing that you are breathing with me. Yeah. So I just want to pause for a moment in the spirit of Sawubona, in the spirit of oneness and connection, and say, and just breathe. Y'all breathe with me through the nose and out the mouth. Through the nose, out the mouth. I see you, Susanna. Hey, Santa. I just need to confess that I am one of those ones who struggles with the word no. I know that the word no is a complete sentence with a period on the end. I know that the word no is a complete sentence with an exclamation point on the end. I also know that the word no is a complete sentence with a question mark on the end. And there are times when I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Or do I really want to do that? And so, yeah, I'm just doing too much. I'm just doing too much. Thank you so much for joining us for The Good Fight. We are here every single Tuesday, and The Good Fight is made possible by I'm so excited to be an entrepreneur, to have my own consulting firm called Just Talk Consulting, where we really believe that if we really mean what we say, that we're going to live in a world that is more just, more equitable, more inclusive, more peaceful, then we are going to have to learn how to live and love differently. And at Just Talk, that's what we posit, that's what we embody, that's what we challenge other people to consider. And so Just Talk makes this conversation possible because it allows us to have this talk, to gather together in this space at the intersection of social justice and faith. How do we live the faith that we talk about? That's the question that Just Talk poses to us and gives us an opportunity to try to answer when we come together on every Tuesday night at 7 a.m. Hey, Arve Salbona, to have this conversation. I know that there are several of you who join me every single week and you never say a word. And I want you to know how grateful I am for your silent presence. I know there are people who join me every single week and you make your presence known. I want you to know how grateful I am for your presence. There are people who join me every single week, not live in the space, but at some other time during the rhythm of their lives where they have decided that this time is dedicated to the good fight. And for that, I am grateful. I am simply grateful. And those of you who are joining the good fight for the very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm always trying to infuse some American Sign Language because it's a difference. Now, American Sign Language is different from Black American Sign Language, is different from African Sign Language, it's different from regional sign language. Because when I lived in Maryland, there were signs that we do not do here. They don't mean the same thing here in Little Rock. And so I'm always trying to incorporate some sign language as a means of pushing you to think about being bilingual in that way, and of pushing me to go ahead and get my license. But welcome to this space. Here in this space, there are ways that you can engage. One of the ways that you can engage with the good fight is to see yourself reflected in the space, to have an experience where you are familiar with what is being said in the room. There's another way that you can engage, and it's by looking through a window where this is not your story. You don't know what it's about. You're not familiar with it. You have no idea what the person is talking about, but you recognize and you honor that it is somebody else's story, and you want to give yourself over to that. I want to hear your story. I want to receive your story, and I want to become one with your story, regardless of what I do with it, if I do anything with it at all. And then the final way that you can engage is by walking through a door. And several of you beyond this moment will send me a text and be like, now what you say? Or did you read this? Did you know this? Have you run across that? And that is so extremely helpful for my own growth, and for us to continue to be in relationship for more than just this hour. You can also, you feel free to comment. You're commenting on Facebook, and because we are streaming on the StreamYard platform, I can show the comment to everybody, and so we can see it and read it together and engage with it if we want. And so thank you for being here for the good fight. I am excited about this conversation because I don't know what's going to happen with it. You know, I think I'm just a different type of person. Like, I'm excited because because of the uncertainty of the conversation. I have found, especially recently, that I'm less inclined to be excited about conversations where my conversation partner already has a projected end. Hey, Miss Narwita. Miss Narwita said peace and blessings. I'll take that. Have you all ever been to those prosperity churches where they'll say stuff like money coming, and then they want you to reach up and say, I'll take that? So Miss Narwita says peace and blessings bestowed upon you in this moment. I'll take that. I receive that. Receive. Take your hands, open hand, and then clamp down. Give it to me. I got it. I'll take it. That's sign language for receive. I'll receive that. And so I am excited about the conversation because I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how you are going to respond. I don't know how it's going to land with you. I don't know what the conversation will evoke within you. And so I'm excited to see how it unfolds. But as always, I want to tell you how I got to this space of talking about 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 12, because that's our pericope for today. Pericope, Piricope, meaning the selected text that we are offering as the source for our conversation. Pericope can be used for any book. When I was at the Black Love event on last Saturday before last, I chose a pericope from Toni Morrison's Beloved. It was a section of the book that I extracted to read for the purposes of the conversation that we were having at the intersection of the system of white inhumanity and Black love. It's attack on Black love. And so pericope can be used beyond just talking about the Bible. So I've selected for tonight for us to talk about I've selected for tonight for us to talk about 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 12, because of a number of things. And I really do love it when this happens. There'll be an event that happens on one day that gets my juices flowing to talk about something. And then there'll be another event that supports that, and they're not related at all. And so I feel like that's the universe working in and through and among and around me. And I absolutely received that, just like I received Miss Norwita's peace and blessings. And so I went to a conference not long ago. It was at the end of January. I think it was like January 25th through the 28th. I want to say it was like 4 days and 3 nights. We were in Minnesota, and it was the United States Association of Prides. So Pride is an annual celebration that is hosted by several cities throughout the state, in honor of, in celebration of, in acknowledgement of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, agender, two-spirited plus. And it is an opportunity to draw attention to the community to say, we are here And our lives matter. Oh, I didn't even think about saying that, like Black Lives Matter. I didn't mean for that to come out like that. But that you do not get to try to invisibilize us. You do not get to pretend that we do not exist. You do not get to continue to operate in this world where the heterosexual is to be heterosexual is the norm. And anything that is not heterosexual then becomes inferior. Like, this is not what we're going to allow you to do. And so this conference was about how do those of us who come alongside this community and host pride events, how do we show up in a different way than how we've been showing up, so that we are constantly improving our annual celebrations. And so, because I sit on the board of the Central Arkansas Pride here in Little Rock, I was gifted the opportunity to go to this conference. And it was during this conference that there was a person who identifies as Black and male who was presenting and hosting one of the breakout sessions. And the breakout session was around trauma and talking about how we've kind of fallen away from. This is not what the person said. This is what I'm saying. We have fallen away from the true history of where pride celebrations come from. Because the first pride, if we really want to talk about the first pride event, was actually a riot. And there was a Black trans woman named Marsha P. Johnson, and there was a brown trans woman, Sylvia Rivera, who were showing up at this club where they show up all the time. And the club was constantly being rioted because they were the targets of the community. They were targets of law enforcement, and they had just gotten sick. A few minutes ago, I was at this event where they asked me, who inspires me? Denise, who inspires you? And I said, Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer inspires me because she's from Mississippi. No, because she's Black, she's woman, she's from Mississippi. And even though she's in the political arena, that's not something I aspire to be, but she's in the political arena and she is unapologetic. She is fierce. She is bold. She is vocal. She is, right? And that is all of who I believe that's who I am. I am unapologetic. I am bold. I am confident. I am willing to show up. I just am. And I'm okay with that. And so I was inspired by her. And she's also the one that we credit the words, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. It is done. It's time for something to change. And so Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, on this one night at this Stonewall Inn where they were just enjoying being who they are, there was a riot there was what do you call it when the police come in? And they intentionally target so that they can come in and bust down the doors, a raid. And so the law enforcement conducted this raid, and they were tired. They were sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so they fought back. They fought back on this. Yes, Miss Narita, it's a raid. And so they were sick and tired of being constantly traumatized and dehumanized and targeted by the police, the law enforcement agency, and other community members, that they said, we fight. Tonight we fight. And they fought for days. Like the fight, it was like 3 days that they were fighting. And so that is what jumped off what we call the gay rights movement. And the gay rights movement now is the face of it, basically, are gay white men. So it's like, how did we go from Black and brown trans women leading this effort for rights, for civil rights, for human rights, for the right to just be, to now we talking about white gay men who particularly are more concerned about just being, their number one concern is how can I be how can I be accepted? Right? Like I'm everything. Like I'm white, I'm male, I'm able-bodied, I am spiritual in some way. Like these are all the check marks that we check off for people that we consider to sit in the highest seats of privilege. And the only thing that separates me from being at the top is that I'm gay. So how do I gain status? The last piece that's missing in my puzzle, like how do I get more status? So that has become the face of the movement. And it's like, how did we get here? So we're having this conversation at Pride where we're talking about how we can, at this conference, where we're talking about how how can we be more intentional about reminding us that pride is not just about this celebration? It's not just about glitter. It's not just about flags. It's not just about wearing whatever clothes we want to wear to express ourselves. It is about reminding us that we are still struggling to see everybody for who they are, to allow everybody to bring the whole of who they are into every space that they enter. That's what pride is supposed to be about. So how do we remind ourselves of that as we honor each other, as we celebrate each other, as we have this glorious time together for however many days pride lasts in your context? Because some prides last a whole week. I think we just got around to doing 2 days. Maybe we do 3 days. I don't know. And so that's where I am. I'm at this conference talking about this, and this Black man is talking about trauma, right? And he's talking about the significance of us naming our trauma. It is important that we stop being what I would consider in the church context to be super Christian, where everything that happens to us, we credit God because it's just some test that God is sending us through so that we can see God's glory on the other side of it. So I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to mourn. I'm not going to let you see me sweat, but I'm going to continually praise God. I'm going to continually lift up the name of Jesus. I'm going to continually glorify the triune God, because no matter what I'm going through, it's for my good. Paul says that in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, and he says it so emphatically that it's attractive. I have received that statement on more than one instance where he says, and this we know. Paul says, and this we know. There's no doubt about it. There's no second guessing it. There's no misunderstanding. And this we know, that all things work together. All things. Now, what is all things? All things doesn't leave any. When you say the word all, that doesn't leave anything out. Paul says, and this we know, all things work together for the good of them who love God and who are called according to God's purpose. And so it gives us this notion, this concept, this theory, this philosophy that no matter how hard our lives are, no matter how hard our lives are, no matter what I'm going through, it doesn't matter how it breaks me down. It doesn't matter how it affects me. I should just remember that it's for my good, because God is working it out for my good. We even go back to the Old Testament in that verse that says, what man meant for, what the devil meant for evil, God will work it out for my good. So evil is happening to us, evil is happening around us, and somehow we work it out through these theological calisthenics, where evil then becomes a tool for God to be good to us. And so this is what this young man basically is saying. Now, I'm not saying this is what he said. I'm saying this is the paraphrase of what he said. This is what I heard. That's what I'm going to say. This is what I heard. Not what he said. This is what I heard. That even though we are going through trauma, one of the great things about us as people and about us as a community is that we are resilient. And when he said resilience, I was like, I hate that word. I hate that word. What does that mean when you say that we are resilient? I really don't hear people talk about white folks being resilient. I don't. I hear people talk about Black folks being resilient all the time. And so when we say resilient, what does that mean? What do we hear? How does it land in our spirits? And so I just thought I would just simply look up the word. Like when somebody goes to the dictionary, it's amazing to me when I'm looking at the highlights, when things happen in our world, when some kind of event happens, Google will then send out this article, this message to us to tell us how many times a certain word from that event was Googled, was searched, because people now want to take a closer look at the definition. And so he made me want to take a closer look at the definition, because I already knew what I believed the word resilient to mean. Resilient to me meant, oh, so something happens to me, and I keep, something happens to me and I just keep going. Like, it doesn't stop my flow, it doesn't keep me from reaching my goals. It happens, but yet I continue to move forward. Look at our May. Yes. So the word resilient is like a Timex. It takes a licking and it keeps on ticking. And so something happens, there's some trauma, there's some injury, there's some pain, there's some harm that you endure, and yet you don't allow that harm, that injury, that pain, that trauma to keep you from moving forward. And so on its face, I would say, yes, I think it's a good thing to be resilient, because life happens. No one ever, what is that song? Oh, I used to love this song. God has not promised me. God has not promised me sunshine. That's not the way it's going to be. But be grateful. The name of the song is Be Grateful. It's Walter Hawkins, Be Grateful. And so no, I'm not suggesting that life is supposed to be good all the time. And so just the word resilient on its face, we can say, oh, okay, on its face, yes, this is a good thing. Let's promote this. But sometimes we ought to stop for a moment and think more deeply and more critically about what we are saying. So when this young man said this about, because we're specifically talking about the community of people who are LGBTQ plus, and so talking about how important it is for us to be resilient. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So a community, because I'm likening this to Black folks. We're talking about LGBTQ folks, but in my mind, I feel like, wait a minute, what if we substitute Black people for LGBTQ people? Because two things can be happening at the same time. Two communities can be experiencing the same thing at the same time. So both of these can be true. So if we're talking about, oh, so when things happen to your community, you just suck it up and keep on going, because you don't want your enemy, you don't want those who are in opposition to you, you don't want those who are coming for you to feel like they have the upper hand, that they have gained something because you are hurt, and because they see you, because they can deem you weak, because you take a moment to say, this is not good. I was getting ready to use the word sucks. This sucks, but my mama hates that word. And so I was listening to him talk about how important to be resilient is, and I began to get more and more frustrated. I'm like, so let's take a closer look. Well, don't get me wrong. I said something to him during the Q&A, but that's not what this is about. But it sent me through a door. Remember, we talked about ways to engage. It sent me through a door. Let's talk about, think more deeply about this word resilience. So I just started with the basic definition. And the basic definition of resilient, first of all, it's an adjective, which is important to know because it describes the kind of person you are. And so for you to be resilient, then it's like part of your character. It's something that you want to wear as a badge of honor. It's something that you want to be known for. Like, it's important to you. It's significant in your life. You are passionate about being one who can be considered resilient, which means that you are able to withstand and you are able to recover quickly from difficult conditions, able to withstand. So first of all, I can go through whatever it is that you're sending me through, and I can get over it fast. I can make sure that nobody even knows how it affected me, because I'm going to fall down, but I'm going to pop right back up, and I'm going to keep going no matter how difficult the condition. And when I began to think about that, I could not help but think about the story of Botham Jean. Do you all remember this Black man? And when I say Black, I mean it in the most expansive definition of the word, all members of the African diaspora. So, this man, based on his name, I would say, is not Black as we know it in America, but from some other part of the world. Botham Jean, Jean. We say Jean, but it's Jean. Okay, so he was in his own apartment, minding his own business, when a white woman who happened to be a cop entered his apartment, claimed that she believed that someone was in her apartment who did not belong there, and she shot and killed him in his own apartment, and then later said, "Oh my goodness, I made a mistake. I thought I was at my apartment." Now, mind you, the apartments are on different floors. Mind you, the welcome mat in front of the apartment is different. Like all of these things, but we don't have to get into that. The point that I'm trying to get to is that she was charged for killing him, and there was a trial for her. And at the trial, Botham Jean's brother is on the witness stand. He's on the witness stand testifying on behalf of his brother, who was killed in his own home for no reason other than somebody said they made a mistake. Again, I don't want to argue the facts of the case. So as he is talking about the death of his brother, the untimely death, the unjust death, the unnecessary death of his brother, which to me would have brought up all kinds of emotion. Like, I've only lost my father. So I've lost my grandparents too, but I was not close to them. But my father was in my home every day when I was growing up as a child. He was in the home every day. So he's the closest person to me that I have ever lost to death. And even though we knew that he was dying, it still did not take away the sting of death when it happened. And so if I could imagine what it's like based on my own experience to be in this courtroom, reliving your time together with your brother who is no longer here, your brother you never got the opportunity to say goodbye to, your brother who did not deserve what happened to him in his own home. I was just talking about this today. If you are not safe in your own home, where can you be safe in this world? If you do not have refuge anywhere else, shouldn't you have it in your own home? If the world frustrates you to no end, where is it that you go for peace if not your own home? So he's in his own home and is murdered in his own home, and his brother is talking about this and then takes a moment in the midst of all of this to ask if he could hug the one who killed his brother. And this is how we view resiliency. Oh, yes, something awful happened to him. Oh, yes, he was traumatized by the death of his brother, but he is resilient. Look how quickly he was able to recover from the harm that was inflicted upon him by the death of his brother. Look how he was able to pull up the goodness of God, the grace of God, and to be able to extend forgiveness to this woman in the moment because he is resilient. I take issue with that. Another definition for the word is resilient: able to spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. Able to spring back into shape. So whatever happens to you, whatever harm, whatever trauma, whatever injury you experience that is inflicted upon you, perpetrated against you, then you're able to spring back into shape. So this is where you were, this happens, but then resiliency says, no, you can come right back. To me, that suggests that you can ignore what happened because I'm going to go right back to where I was. It does not give me room to say that what happened to me, what harmed me, what traumatized me, what dehumanized me, what was unjust that happened to me, it does not give me room to say, now I'm not the same. I didn't just spring. How do you just spring back into shape when death knocks at your door in this way? Death is already difficult for us to comprehend and to deal with. But then when it's unjust, then you want me to just act like nothing happened? Like, yeah, just for a little while, I wasn't okay, but now I'm perfectly fine. Like I'm right back to where I started from. I've sprung back into shape. And that's just not, for me, realistic. And so when we think about this word resilience, what you're asking me to do is to be superhuman. And what I need you to do is to allow me to be human. I ain't trying to be no superhuman. I ain't trying to be no super Christian. I ain't trying to be no super black person. I ain't trying to be no what Karen White say. I'm not your superwoman. That's not who I am. I'm not the kind of girl that you can just do whatever you want to do and it's supposed to be okay. And so this idea that resiliency is something that we should aspire to, that resiliency is something that I want to write down on my resume as one of the skills that I offer for my soft personal skills. Like, no, don't fall for that. That's the topic for tonight. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for this idea that we're supposed to be so strong that we can handle anything and it doesn't affect us long term. It doesn't affect us for a long time and it doesn't change our makeup in any way. Because that, my friends, is not what it means to be human. What it means to be human is to say, I'm reading Gabrielle Union's book. Have y'all seen this book? I think this is her second book, but I haven't read the first book. Her book, You Got Anything Stronger? And I haven't gotten far because I'm not reading it consistently. But Gabrielle Union was raped when she was 19 years old. And what happened in that moment is that her life then was separated into two phases. You've got the Gabrielle that existed before the rape, and you've got the Gabrielle that existed after the rape. And she's been living in these two worlds for a long time. But this book, or at least this chapter, was about her realizing that there was even a third phase. There was the transition between the Gabrielle, they call her Nikki because her middle name is Monique, the Nikki who was before the rape and the Nikki who was after the rape. And so you've got to have an opportunity for yourself to you got to have an opportunity for you to stop for a moment as a human and say, this has affected me. This has changed me. I am no longer the same. So the topic reminds me of the Hall & Oates song. No, I can't go for that. No, can do. I know that song. I can't go for that. You cannot inflict harm on me, intentional or not. But you cannot inflict harm on me and say, oh, but you're resilient. We look at children today who are living in poverty. And when they get to the point where they have a job, we say, oh, you were so resilient. We look at children who were hungry, who now have enough money to go to a grocery store and buy organic food. And we say, look how resilient you were. So we put them in a situation that is not, that they should not be in. And it's like we sit back and watch. Let me see how you're going to handle this. And if you handle it well, you get points for being resilient. If you don't, it's like, I don't know what happened to you. This idea of being resilient, I'm asking us not to go for it. Here's another reason I'm asking us not to fall for it. I wanted to look up the etymology of the word, and I really did not even get into, because I lose focus, y'all. In relationship with a friend of mine, I'm learning that I lose focus. I did not know that I lose focus, but he has shown it. He has pointed it out to me on more than one occasion. You lose focus. Don't lose focus. Stop. You losing focus. So I lost focus. Let me just confess. I was supposed to be looking up the etymology of the word. What did the word mean when it was first introduced into our lexicon in the 1800s? What what changes have been made over the course of the years to the definition of the word? How are we using it now? What is the difference between the way it was used before and the way we're using it now? What can we learn? Like, that's what I was supposed to be thinking about and focusing on. Instead, hey, Nicole Edwards. Instead, I was like, I want to see how often the word was being used, when the word was being used, and what was happening in our world when it was being used. So when the word was first introduced in the 1800s, it wasn't really used a lot. Like, here go another word we added to the dictionary. But in 1915, there was an uptick in the use of the word. 1926, there's a downturn for the use of the word. 1938, there's an uptick for the use of the word, but then it dips in 1939, but begins to climb again. And in 1956, it is really on the upswing. And I'm like, in 1956, leading up to the 60s, when we talk about the civil rights era, I'm like, oh, you really want to talk about being resilient now? Why is that? What would make us talk about being resilient in the late 1950s, when it leads up to Black folks saying, I can't go for that. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, because all of these things have been happening to us as a community, as a Black community. We are dealing with all of this dehumanization, all of this discrimination, all of this degradation, all of this trauma. And here we are rising and continuing to rise. And it's like people are looking like, look how resilient they just take a licking and keep on ticking. Look at how they can just come back. It's like when we use the word resilient, we are giving the system of white inhumanity a pass. Like, it doesn't matter what we do to them. It doesn't matter how hard we make their lives. Look, see, won't they keep going? See, won't they keep trying to get up? Not trying. See, won't they keep getting up? And see how hard they'll try to keep pushing. It's almost mesmerizing. It's almost like we are sitting back watching this organism under this microscope, and we are just fascinated. Look at how resilient these Black people are. Like, look at all they've gone through, and they are still here. Like, that is the idea. That's what comes up in my body when we talk about resistance. So you just gonna keep doing stuff because you're like, don't worry about them, they'll be fine. So there's a downturn in the word and the use of the word in 1976. But then in 2019, it is I'm talking about, it is sure enough being used. I said, okay, what was happening in 2019? Especially as it relates to Black folks, that would make this word resilient be something that is used more and more and more and more. Especially more than it was used significantly more than it was used in 1976. And I cannot help but deduce from the situation, from what was happening in 2019 to Black folks, because now, don't get me wrong, what was happening in 2019 to Black folks with this resurgence of brutality at the hands of law enforcement, this system of police brutality that continues to harm Black bodies. Like, this is not new. And I'm not suggesting that it is new at all. But who was that? I think it was Will Smith, who has been credited with saying, that this is nothing new, it's just being taped. Like, now it's being videotaped. Like, now we have a record of it in ways that we did not before. So what's happening to Black bodies at the hands of law enforcement, at the hands of the police, is not anything new. But in 2019, it's happening in a way that is waking us up, that is leading us to this reckoning that takes place in 2020, especially with the death of Mr. George Floyd in Minnesota, where I was for this conference. on pride. So I'm telling you, the universe just works in mysterious ways. And then the rest of the verse says, wonders to perform. And those wonders I'm thinking about is how it makes things come alive within me so that I can think about it on a deeper level. And so in 2019, Black people in particular are facing all of these atrocities, all of these injuries, all of these harms to our bodies with mass incarceration and the system of healthcare that does not favor us because it is not culturally competent or sensitive. We're talking about the education of our children that continues to be on a down. I don't know if it continues to go down because I don't think that whiteness ever intended to educate our children. I mean, Miss Narita, what do you think about that? Because you are an educator. You devoted your life to being an educator. And I just feel like here we are in 2023, like begging the system of white inhumanity to do right by our children. But did they used to? Have they stopped doing right by them? When did they ever do right by us? Like I'm sure you know more. I only taught for 10 years. And when I taught in public schools, I was not socially conscious. So I really wasn't paying attention to what was happening to our children. I was just trying to do right by the ones that were assigned to my class. That's really all I was trying to do. And so I feel like there never has been a time when we could depend on our children, our Black children, to be properly educated in a loving and culturally sound and academically vigorous way that's going to propel them to be successful beyond the public school system's time with them, beyond their matriculation through the public school system. Miss Norita said, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Y'all see this? The more things change, the more they remain the same. Yeah. Yeah. And so when you think about all of this happening in 2019, because it wasn't just police brutality, again, we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about housing, we're talking about education, we're talking about employment, we're talking about gaps in all of these spaces. And now we see the uptick of this word, but they resilient. And so I am asking us not to fall for this idea that to be resilient is something that we should want to be. I don't want to be resilient. I don't want you to sit back and do whatever you want to do to me and just watch me get up. And even the Bible supports it, though. The Bible supports that idea. Who is it? It's a psalmist that says, and Donnie McClurkin sings it, we fall down, but we get up. And if you listen to the extended version, he goes on to preach. He's basically preaching this sermon about how the righteous man, if you are righteous, you fall down 7 times, but you're going to get back up again. So this idea of resiliency, this idea that just, even if you get knocked down, just get back up. Now, again, I am not suggesting that when life happens, you stay down. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. What I'm suggesting is this posture that the world takes, the world of whiteness, the system of white inhumanity says, I can intentionally knock you down and sit and watch and see how you get up. My brothers them used to do that to me. My mama tells the story, y'all. She tells the story of me being a little girl because I'm the youngest of 3 children. My brother Derek is 9 years older than me. And Dwayne is 3 years older than me. So I'm the baby and they're boys and I'm a girl. So I lived in this house where there were really strict gender roles. Like the boys were supposed to be boys and I was a girl, supposed to be girls. So there were double standards all throughout my whole life, but we were allowed to play together. And so my brothers would be wrestling each other, just wrestling. And so I'm trying to get up in there. I'm trying to wrestle too, but I'm the baby. Like I'm just a toddler. And so I don't have the strength. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just trying to be with my brothers. And so they would knock me down. And when I say knock me down, all they had to do was barely touch me and I'd fall back. And when I fall back, I would have to struggle to try to get back up. Because you know how babies do. First, they got to figure out how to turn over on their stomach. Then they got to put their booty in the air. Put the booty in there. Then they got to try to stand up so that they won't fall. Like, so this is this whole process that I'm going through thinking I'm playing. Really, I'm struggling. The whole time I'm struggling. They don't ever stop doing what they're doing. And then by the time they see me get up, what do? They knock me down again. And my mama's watching this. Like everybody just laughing and giggling. Look at Denise struggle. Now that's a cute story from my childhood, but it ain't cute when you pick it up and apply it to this world where you are intentionally knocking me down just so that you can sit up and watch me struggle, and you getting a kick out of it. And by the time I stand up, you knock me back down again. That is not the world that I believe God created us to live in. And if that's what it means to be resilient, I'm saying don't fall for that. Stop allowing the world to do whatever it wants to do to us, and then we just chalk it up to resiliency. We chalk it up to the will of God. We chalk it up to Paul saying, "In this we know all things work together." Or we chalk it up to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 12. I didn't put it on the screen today, but I can read it to you in your hearing. And I really do remind you that it's important for you to read for yourselves, because I might not read it right. I might not read it in the way that you can hear it, so you can read it for yourself. But this is 2 Corinthians. Y'all remember your former president talking about 2 Corinthians? This is so on the flyer. I didn't even put the 2. I don't want anybody to say that. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 7 through 12. It says, "But we have this treasure." Oh, I'm reading from the New International Version just because it's my default. That's the only reason why. "But we have this treasure," and the treasure is the gift of the Holy Spirit. "But we have this treasure in jars of clay." Jars of clay would be our bodies. "But we have this treasure of the Holy Spirit in jars of clay, which is our bodies, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. We are hard-pressed, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." I want us to read that part again. Verse 8. "We are hard-pressed on every side, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." If this is not a support for being resilient, I don't know what verse is, because it says we are pressed on every side, but we not crushed. We are perplexed, but we're not in despair. We are persecuted, but we are not abandoned. We are struck down, but not destroyed. Let me keep reading. "We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may be revealed in our body." I shouldn't have kept reading. I should have stopped at verse 8. And so here we are with the word. Listen to what the word is saying. We are hard-pressed, perplexed, persecuted, and struck down. You are going through all of, hey, Luella, Miss McClay. I don't think I ever called you Luella. Did I ever call you Luella? Miss McClay, how's John? Oh my goodness. We are hard pressed. We on every side. We are crushed. We are perplexed, and we are struck down. And our response is, but we're resilient though. I'm saying don't fall for that. I'm saying if we are hard pressed on every side, we are perplexed, we are abandoned, we are persecuted, and we are struck down, we need to stop for a moment. We need to stop for a moment and center ourselves and recognize what is happening to our bodies, because trauma is real. We are being traumatized, and if we do not address that trauma, then it sets up sickness within our bodies. If we do not deal with our trauma, it affects our relationships. If we do not deal with our trauma, it changes who we are. It changes the chemical makeup in our minds. They're doing study after study now about how trauma, the trauma of poverty, the trauma of hunger, the trauma of racism, how it is changing the minds of our children, has already changed the minds of adults. So we cannot afford to say, I'm hard pressed on every side, I'm persecuted, I am perplexed, and I'm struck down, but I'm okay. We are not okay. And it should not be our goal to be okay. It should be our goal to get healed and become whole. That should be our goal. Oh, Miss Luella said that John is fine. Tell him I said hello. That should be our goal. And then so the other thing I want to say, don't fall for, is when it talks about our bodies are just clay. We just clay. We talk about we're nothing but flesh. It's almost as if we diminish the power of our bodies, because we say, well, our bodies really don't mean anything, because what matters is Jesus who's in our bodies. And I'm saying, no, our bodies mean everything. We are, especially since our bodies carry what gives us power. Whatever the spirit is that you believe lives inside of you, whether it's the spirit of the universe, the spirit of creation, the spirit of your ancestors, the spirit of yourself, the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of wisdom, whatever that spirit is, we have a responsibility to be intentional about how we carry it, how we nurture the vessel that carries it. So we are more than just clay. We are more than just flesh. We embody a supernatural power that is bigger than who we are, that is beyond who we are, that yes, it can fight the things that happen to us in life, but it can also give us a moment to breathe. The power is also there to say, hey, pay attention to your body. Stop for a moment and give yourself over to the emotions that come along with trauma. Do not brush them aside. Do not do not give them, like surrender them to the Lord and say, well, the Lord gonna handle it. I don't have to do anything with it. No. Center yourself. Feel the pain. Acknowledge the trauma, talk about it, get help for it, seek out counsel, not just counsel from professional therapists, which is fine, and I absolutely think we need it, but we've got elders among us, we have friends, we have community that can come alongside us and offer us wisdom and knowledge and counsel for our bodies when we are going through, rather than just saying, go on, we're not gonna stay here. Come on, get yourself up. What do we say? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, keep going. Don't fall for these cliches. Don't fall for this strong, especially as Black women, this strong Black woman philosophy. No. I don't want to be resilient, y'all. I want to be human. And I want to live in a world that does not intentionally inflict harm on me just so that it can sit back and say, but you'll be okay. Watch her. She'll rise. She'll be like the phoenix from the ashes. Yes, I will rise. Who is that? Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. Wait, how does it go? You may shoot me with your words. You may kill me with your eyes. I cannot remember all the words, but she says, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my haughtiness upset you? Do you take it awful hard? Because I walk like I've got diamonds. I've got oil wells digging in my own backyard. So Nicole says we rise from the ashes because we are not given any other choice or option. Y'all look at this. We rise from the ashes because we are not given any other choice or option. So I say, yes, we rise. Yes, let's rise from the ashes. But what I'm asking us also to do is to not accept the ashes as part of our lives. What I think that we've done is we've said, because we have these words like this in the Bible, that we're hard pressed on every side, that we are perplexed, we are persecuted, we are struck down. Well, that's what our life is supposed to be. Our life is supposed to be hard. Our life is supposed to be filled with ashes. And so we just got to learn how to rise. So yes to you, Nicole, we must rise. We got to keep going. We got to get up. Yes. And we have to not fall for the fact that my life is supposed to be filled with trauma just because you know I can rise. So you know I can rise. So you just keep doing stuff so that I can. You keep putting me in situations, and then we say it's a test from God. God is not testing us. The world is being cruel to us. And so all I'm asking us to do is not to accept the ashes as part of our life. We were not created to constantly rise from the ashes. Although we do, although we can, although we will, that's not what we were created to do. So let's not fall back into this idea that, well, you know, whatever happens works together for God's good. No, let's fight. Let's change the system. Let's divest from the system. Let's dismantle the system. Let's vote. For me, everything comes down to the vote. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is in office right now as governor in Arkansas because we voted for her. When I say we, the state voted for her. Y'all know I ain't vote for her. And so that's what I'm asking us to do, is to not fall for, even though these are beautiful words from scripture that remind us of the power that we hold within our bodies. It also suggests that we should just receive and accept the hardships of life as part of God's plan, rather than realizing, no, this is something that a man made as a system that is unfair to me, that is cruel, that is unjust, and I don't have to fall for it. I don't have to go for it. I am going to stand up and say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, so I'm getting ready to do something about it. And I'm going to come along in the fight. When I get off the phone with y'all, when I hang up with you, I got to send letters to the senators. We got an education bill coming up at 9 a.m. I got to write. I got to fight. I got to do something, because this is not the way my life is supposed to be. And so I'm just asking us not to fall for this notion of resiliency. I don't want us to wear it as a badge. I don't want us to think that that's what our lives are all about. Just getting over it. Just forgiving everybody no matter what they do to us. But to say, no, I wasn't created for this. I can withstand it. I can recover. I can move beyond it, but I wasn't created for it. And it's not okay. And then also to remind us of the importance of taking care of our mental health. This kind of trauma that we deal with every day, it's not good for our mental health. Seek some help from whoever you're comfortable seeking it from. You can seek it from me. I'm licensed. Is my license? If you once licensed, are you always licensed to be a spiritual director? That's me. Break the generational curse of hurt. What wonderful words for us to end on tonight for the good fight. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let us go forth from this place to break the generational curse of hurt, where we have been taught to receive it as part of what it means to be Black. Let's say no. I say no to that. I'm going to fight for the right to be who God created me to be. And that's not resilient. It's human. That's who I am. Thank you, Miss Luella. I'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place, right here at 7 o'clock. Look, I know y'all about to go to sleep, but I got to write these senators. Who do y'all need to be writing some letters to your senator? I bet you do. Call somebody. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.